Welcome back, Inebri-art. This is your faithful host, Andy, as always. Please excuse my voice. It's starting to go a little bit. I've been recording a lot of podcasts the past couple of days, and getting over a head cold is never a good combo. But I have recurring guests today. Steve, you're going to be at the Pages and Pint? Are you at the Pages and Pint thing? Or are we just...
I mean, I feel like you're guilting me into it right now.
No, I didn't. Because I've been recording a bunch and all of a sudden, no, it's fine. So if you're at Pages and Pie, you won't see Steve Van Samson. Sorry, man. Not trying to guilt trip you a little bit. And
That's okay.
Derek Rook, the guys from Rough House Publishing. What's going on, guys?
How's it going, Andy? Good to see you again.
It's going real good. Real good, man.
Good to hear you again. I can't see anybody.
Derek is just a faceless name.
Yeah, he's stricken blind. Suddenly stricken blind. You know what that means? He's been doing too much of. That is publishing really cool stuff. That's what makes you blind, kids.
I was gonna say Ovaltine.
But it's been like 2 years, I think, since we talked.
Guys, it's amazing how fast that time goes by. I remember it
I think it was 2019.
I was gonna say it was before COVID, so it's at least 3 years.
We came down and we were promoting issue 2 of Gore Shriek Resurrectus.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And are we on issue 3, issue 7? Where are we at?
Well, we're actually working on issue 3 as we speak, and since that podcast, we've had 2 books out since then. So this is actually our 3rd since then that we're working on.
What books have you guys put out? Like, are they fairy tales, kid stories, romance novels?
Oh yeah, we totally flipped. We flipped
all the above.
Kids entertainment. 5 and under.
5 and under.
Yeah, if it were a musical genre, it would be Mongolian death reggae.
But no, what have you guys put out?
Well, this fine gentleman who you can't see, but I'm referring to the screen as if you can, has put out a couple of my books. We started a brand new leg of Rough House Publishing, Andy. I want to tell you about it. It's all about novels because Rough House was all about comics. So we did a novel and recently we put out my second book with them, which is Black Honey and Other Unsavory Things. That is not a novel. That is a short story collection. So it's 11 short stories written by myself, and there are accompanying illustrations by Mr. Derek Rook, who's also on the podcast, Mr. Derek Rook. And some you can just call him Mr. Some people do. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So we did 2 of those, a little bit of a sidebar, and then we're diving right back into doing some comics next.
Yeah, Andy, when we all got together the last time, that was actually the first podcast that Steve and I did together at that point.
That's right.
And I'm not sure if we had even done any shows together at that point yet. Steve, do you recall?
Yeah, I don't believe so. I think our first our first one was Scaricon, right?
But I don't think that was. I don't remember the dates too well, but I could have sworn. No, because we premiered Gore Shriek 2, Gore Shriek Resurrectus 2, excuse me, at Rock and Shock in 19.
Oh, right. So we'd probably done a couple. We probably did the Scaricons anyway, but that was really, really close to the beginning for sure.
For sure.
That's right. Our first shows together, we had just things that we had already published separately. So like you had the first issue of Gore Shriek, and you had some of your other titles that you've published throughout the years, and then I had my vampire books, which I actually did talk about on my first appearance on Inebri-art.
Yeah, I
way back when. I think that was probably 2017, probably.
Yeah, Bone something King. Bone.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. No, it's pretty good. No, the Bone Eater King is the first book.
I knew it was
Bone Eater King. Yeah, and those are vampire books set in Africa. And there is actually, if any of you out in the listening world have any clue as to who the heck I am, and the book, The Bone Eater King, there is a tie-in story in Black Honey. Actually, one of the stories takes place in that world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Andy, if I may, One of the reasons, I would say probably, there were two reasons specifically why Steve and I got together in the beginning. Number one is he's just a really great fucking guy. And he's just so friendly, comes over to your table, starts talking to you. You just got to love him. But incidentally speaking, at the time I was looking for a Roughhouse partner anyways, somebody that I could collaborate with. But one of the things that I wanted to do in my career in general, as time had gone on, is not to necessarily move away from sequential art, which is what I'd been known for up to that point. But I really have always loved illustration work, just one-page illustration work, and was looking for an opportunity to do that kind of thing, and also expand what we were already doing. We were doing not just comic books, but exploitation-specific comic books. So we wanted to widen that net a little bit. Steve's stories, his, speaking of the Bone Eater King and Marrow Dust, at that time was perfect for a collaboration down the road where we wanted to actually add illustrations to the narrative and put it out something very close to some of like Stephen King's illustrated work, like The Dark Tower and things like that. And we've been looking for excuses to do a project like that. During COVID, we put out Mark of the Witchworm, which was our first novel. It was a giant novel. And all sorts of cool, groovy extras and everything else. But I largely was not a part of that from an artistic perspective. And then when this project, Black Honey, and other unsavory things came up, that was the green light. That was the reason that we pulled the trigger and said, this is perfect for the type of thing that we want to do. And that's what we did. It's a very art-centric, collective story project, and I'm not afraid to say that at this stage of the game, it's the best thing that we've ever done as Roughhouse.
Now, I'm willing to bet, because I feel like we're all creative people. I have a laundry list of projects I want to work on, ideas I want to flush out. I'm assuming you guys have some sort of list like that. How do you choose like what's the next step? And like, do we do another Gore Shriek? Do we go with another novel? Like, how do you choose what's next in line?
I'll let Derek answer that, but yeah, we have those conversations happen a lot.
Yeah.
And they're not, the answer is not always obvious. Derek, what do you have to say about that?
I would say that let's use COVID as an example. Once the world shut down, for me, I was working all the way through. Some people were laid off, and just kind of sitting around looking for something to do. I remember saying during that time that we are going to see a renaissance of artistic expression come out of this whole thing, providing that it didn't kill us all. That we were going to get a whole new generation of musicians, artists, filmmakers, you name it. And to some degree, I would say that was true. Certainly some of our favorite bands collectively that we all listened to, they came up with brand new albums during that time, or a couple albums worth of material during that time.
Yeah.
And for us, we had finished Gore Shriek at that point, and we were, we didn't know how long this was going to last. At the time, we didn't know how long we weren't going to be able to do shows or anything. But Steve had, and I'll have Steve jump in on this, but Steve had this project already finished pretty much. And it was something that he was sitting on for a while, called Mark of the Witchworm. And that was his newest novel that he was waiting to publish. It wasn't necessarily in Roughhouse's wheelhouse at that time, not only because it was a novel, but it was in a completely different genre. It is not a horror book. We've sold it as a dark, and it does have dark moments, certainly, but it is by all means a dark fantasy novel. And I wasn't positive that our fan base, as it stood, would be okay with it. But at the time, I wanted, the world was going to shit anyways, and I was just like, you know what, fuck it, let's let's
so it's a good thing. It's a good thing we had a pandemic, folks, or you might never have gotten Mark of the Witchworm.
No, we would have. But at that point in time, you know what it was? It was like, screw everything. I'm so tired of dealing, because, you know, if you recall, we were not just dealing with the pandemic, we were dealing with a pandemic that was horribly politicized, and tons of distrust, and nobody, you know, really knew where to turn. Again, not knowing how long this thing was going to last, or what was the proper precautions.
I believe they said it was going to last 3 weeks, Derek.
Well, see, then we were behind.
I was slightly off there. Yeah.
But you know, I'm like, this. I'm just tired of trying to worry about all the wrong things. Let's just put out what we want to put out, what we're inspired to put out, and let the public make a decision. It's not up to us. Once we finish making a piece of art, it belongs to the people. And let them decide. And it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we're doing what we set out to do. We're an independent comic book company, or an independent publishing company, out to make what we've created, bring that to life, and give it to the audience. That's what happened with Mark of the Witchworm, and we've followed that through with Black Honey.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned kind of this renaissance post-COVID. It's been kind of something that a lot of people have talked about when we've interviewed them. Because even I feel there's been two types of people, or creative people, I should say, during COVID. The people who are like, cool, I'm going to use this time to jump in the studio or get some writing done, or blah, blah, blah. Or people like myself, I had zero creative energy. Just being kind of that shut in every day, being exactly the same with nothing going on, did not help my creative drive.
For sure.
Then when you come out of it, it's, there's that old saying, tragedy plus time equals comedy, or, like rough times breeds good music. I mean, there's lots of things that are going to be coming out of this, even now, the people who are still feeling bad about, things are quote unquote back to normal, but not everyone's brains are.
Not everything is either. Yeah, we're back to normal, but if you noticed, the world is forever changed. Everything about us culturally is forever augmented as well. So, we're living in a post-COVID world. Some of it has been fantastic, like we talked about the creative end of it, but I'm not too sure how I think about how it's dealt with us socially, or how we've dealt with each other. But, that's not what this podcast is all about. I'm just glad that people started coming back to the shows. I was really concerned that once we started doing cons again, it was going to be one of those 50 people affairs. But luckily that wasn't the case.
What was your first con after COVID?
Our first con after COVID was
Monster Expo.
Right? Halfway to Halloween.
Yeah, because what happened too, I think it bears mentioning, we had a kind of a feast of good horror cons that are, that were in the area, because we're in Massachusetts. So, Salem is in Massachusetts. There's this sort of pervasive feeling through a lot of people that, this is horror town, this is
every town locally has some sort of haunted house. So,
Yeah, I mean, this is Halloween. This is the Halloween state.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I know, like, people have said from other parts of the country that it's like the weirdest thing. Like, what do you mean? Like, who gives a shit about Halloween after you're 7? Like, it's like, no. It's a state of mind. Shut up. But anyway, so we like kind of own that here. And we had, not only did COVID happen, but two of the biggest that were around, Scaricon and Rock and Shock, both imploded for reasons that had nothing to do with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So they ended right before, and then it went from feast to famine. We had nothing. There was nothing lined up. So it wasn't even like, okay, like Derek said, like, yeah, we were worried. We were hoping that the con scene came back, but there weren't even any cons to come back. It's like new ones had to happen. because both of those, were so big, and Scaricon happened a couple of times a year. And then there were small ones too. And there's lots of other Comic-Cons and little things, obviously, but those are the big horror ones. Anyway, so luckily, we're a few years past it now, and there are new, young cons coming up, stepping up to, take the reins, as it were. And I mean, it's been fun, and it's been like a breath of like relief, a sigh of like, oh my God, thank God, because it really wasn't a sure thing that was going to happen. But we have Monster Expo. They've done 5 shows now. They're doing 2 a year, and they keep growing every single time.
Are those the same guys that run the retro, some sort of retro con? No.
I don't believe so. No, they do some cannabis cons. And I know that's where they kind of got their start, and then they moved into horror, and they still do cannabis, and they do horror. And I think right now that's all they're doing currently, but they are, the gears are turning with the management, and they really are trying to make it something special. And every single year, you talk to them, and they're like, okay, this is why we did this. We added this because this thing last year. And now, we're very much looking at what happened, trying to make it as good as we can. We want you guys to do well. We want all of us to do well. And it's been really fun to see. So there's that. And there are some other ones like Silver Scream, exists now. I haven't actually gotten to go, but I've heard that's really great. And some other cons are coming back. I know, Derek, you can speak better than I can. You're kind of more plugged into that scene. But
I mean, we're even throwing our hat in the ring this year. We have one scheduled in October that we've been working on. So
that's awesome. Which one is it, Andy?
It's Hometown Haunts and Hops. So it is, as far as I know, the only horror con that's held at a brewery. So working with our friends at Mayflower Brewery and our friends on the America's Hometown Horror podcast to kind of put it together.
Cool.
Andy, I'm starting to see a theme going on with all of your projects.
Overcommitment.
That's the Inebri part.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's one of those. It's easy to find a venue when you have these connections already. But honestly, we've been moving more and more away into other. I mean, like we were just doing a team building scavenger hunt for a financial firm on Nantucket.
Wow.
And it was one of those, we created these scavenger hunts, kind of bar crawl charity events around Christmas, and someone took part in one and somehow saw that as their team building event for their president's club. And, they're like, can't involve bars or drinking because they're at work. And so they brought us out to Nantucket. And so we're just getting all these weird opportunities. It's
that's cool.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to come along. And it's
well, like Steve said, we didn't know how long this was going to go on for. And I knew that once we started to open up again, we weren't going to have some of the conventions that we've enjoyed to go back to. So we ended up going on the road. Steve and I went to Florida to Spooky Empire, which is a big convention that they have down in Orlando every year or twice a year. I went out to Pennsylvania to do a HorrorCon out there and film festival. So we were kind of dedicated to going back and doing things the old way. Like back in the early days, I'd be on a plane every month pretty much, or on every other month, going to God knows where to get the name of the company and the product out there. So there's something about not having that safety net of being kind of tied in to conventions where people know who you are. If you need another table, they just bring one over or whatever. You kind of have that I don't want to say a comp life, because it still costs a lot of money to do these, but you have a lot of backup and you have a lot of people that are kind of taking care of you one way or the other. We came out of COVID not having any of that. So meeting up with the folks at Monster Expo and Silver Scream, which is run by the band Ice Nine Kills, Spencer from Ice Nine Kills.
Okay.
Which is just a great, again, mixing metal and horror is just like peanut butter and jelly. It's made to be together. Terracon, the folks that have done the Rhode Island Comic Con are coming back this year.
Nice. I've done that show. That's a great show.
Oh yeah. If you see the guest list for that show, it is ginormous. It's going to be something. And if they stick with it, I do believe that those two conventions, both Silver Scream and Terracon specific, are going to probably be the industry leaders in this area anyways for a while. But again, it was an opportunity for us to go out there again, make some new connections, hit some new markets, and do this. We always call ourselves a do-it-yourself punk rock style independent publishing company, but it's not too punk rock when you get out of bed and drive down the street to your local convention, eat in a nice restaurant, and go home and sleep. It's punk rock when you get on a plane you can't afford and go halfway across the country and
crashing at a friend's place and
exactly you know the drill. So it's been a lot of fun. And here we are. Again, promoting our brand new book, Black Honey.
So it's always interesting to me not just the dedication of horror fans, and this is movies and books and anything related, but also they're kind of, I think it's the only genre where they kind of get the budget you're working with. Like, I feel like they actually take that into consideration. When you're watching a low budget horror movie, your expectations are tempered because you're like, clearly they didn't have the budget of, Avengers, where if you were watching an action movie that didn't have the, multi-billion-dollar budget, people are more critical of that. Why do you think people are so forgiving when it comes to things like horror?
Mostly because of boobs.
Boobs? Got it. Check.
A lot of boobs in cheap horror, and there's a reason for that. Yeah.
Okay, I suppose.
I mean, that's really literally why all those movies in the 70s, started to have so much full frontal. Is because it was pretty cheap and it put butts in seats. But no, I mean, you're right. I mean, horror horror fans are forgiving to a point, as long as the story is what they want, but they can be pretty brutal, just as brutal as anybody. Like if their Halloween sequels don't go the way they wanted, for instance.
Yeah, it seems like the established franchises people love to hate anytime there's something new.
Yeah, that's true of Star Wars and Marvel and as well. There's crappy fans everywhere, but it is cool when you can get this you put anything on, like, there's so much on Tubi. There's so freaking much on Tubi, and there's so much on Peacock too. There's Peacock has become my favorite service around Halloween time. They load it up with such awesome flicks, and their Halloween section is better than any other service, bar none, hands down. Peacock, for some freaking reason. And I mean, it's become a thing the last 2 years at least that I've sort of noticed that this was a thing. And it's amazing all the movies that I had never gotten to see that they're low budget, and it's I had a super good time with this.
I feel like Amazon Prime is that way. That has a lot of just random.
Prime is good.
Yeah.
Prime is good.
I was watching something. Hang on, I will pull it up because I was watching it the other night. I was basically half asleep, dozing off, and it was on. I put it on, and it is the most fucking obscure, weird movie. And it's supposed to be based on Edgar Allan Poe. Now I can't even find the stupid app. Prime Video. Here it is.
This is riveting podcasting.
I know, this is great stuff here. This is why people tune in to watch me go through my Prime list here.
They can't even watch you. We're watching you.
Let's see.
We're seeing your face, but
Dr. Tar's Torture Dungeon.
Don't know that one.
It is.
How many boobs were in that?
I watched probably 2/3 of it before I fell asleep. I think there was a pair. No, I know there was a pair. I don't think there was more than that, but it was just so bizarre and strange. And did we lose Derek? Oh, here he is. Derek.
I think that is honestly another reason why horror is so great, is because it's you can accept just about any other genre. If it becomes scary, it becomes horror. Like you can have a horror sci-fi like Alien, you can have a horror Western, you can have, it doesn't have to all be ghost stories with, Cabin in the Woods or Old Dark House or, Freddy Krueger or something like that. Like there's slashers, there's like all sorts of types of pure horror, but there are also so many examples of literally any other type of movie that has scary parts, and it just becomes horror. And actually to swing it back to Mark of the Witchworm, that's sort of what I was trying to do with that, is to take fantasy and make it like sort of a grounded fantasy.
Yeah.
And so there's, it's more like a Lord of the Rings sort of fantasy. Gandalf is a subtle wizard. He doesn't have an established quote unquote magic system or anything like that. He doesn't, shoot magic missiles. He's just a subtle wizard that kind of does what needs to be done. So
Didn't
with
cast
my
fireball
stuff,
at all.
not at all, not even once. So like with my stuff, there are no wizards. There's no real magic at all, but there is unexplainable stuff. And I tried to, remember as I was writing it that like, okay, yeah, this is fantasy. There are like, swords and stuff. And, but there's a lot of scenes in there that are structured to be horror scenes.
Yeah.
So Derek's right. It's not a horror book, but we tried to I tried to make it as adjacent as possible. And that's why it was even brought up as is this something that we might want to do with Rough House or not. But with Black Honey, it really was like it really was more natural. And as Derek said, we were looking for something that he could illustrate anyway. And hopefully, we'll get there with Predator World. With Predator World is the overarching series of my vampire books. So the Bone Eater King and Merodust, that's Predator World. That's the series. And there will be a third book in the series that'll come out too. And we're going to do, everything's still kind of nebulous right now. We're, a lot of possibilities and stuff of ways we could do it. And we have some really cool things planned for sure. And we're going to definitely get it out to you at some point. But yeah, I mean, like, hopefully we get to do it with that. But with this, it's like, yeah, this is horror. This is much closer to something that, we wouldn't have questioned, like we questioned with Mark of the Witchworm. Will the fans accept this as a Rough House property? And they did. They overwhelmingly did. Nobody, I didn't hear one person complain like, I was worried I was going to be seen as like the Yoko or somebody like, who's this guy? Who's this freaking guy? He's ruining all my baby killing zombies. Like, what the hell? And so, but nobody said that. So that's awesome. And it's great that, Derek took the leap of faith on that book, and it turned out as well as it did. It sold incredibly well, especially in Florida. It was just insane.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Black Honey, it's like
so you said Black Honey is like an anthology, right?
Yeah. Well, so anthology, and it's funny. I've been writing for a while. I just learned this year. I interviewed Richard Thomas, who's a great author, on my podcast, which bears mentioning. I am a co-host of the Retro Redoctopus Cephala podcast, and that is a show that is on your network as well as the Dorkening as well.
Leo Pond, love him.
Yeah, love Leo. He's the sweetest man ever. So anyway, we are in our 5th season, but so we interviewed. We do some interviews. It's not all interview format, but we interviewed Richard Thomas, and he's this great author. His recent book is up for a Stoker. I don't think that the Stokers have happened yet. But he had Spontaneous Human Combustion is his collection, and he informed me that actually anthology is not the right word. Anthology is the term reserved for a book that has multiple stories from different authors.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is it multiple authors, or it's just...
So it's just... Okay. So no. So it's... If it's one author, then it is supposed to be called a collection. But it's funny because all these years, I have been using the words as synonyms. I thought they were interchangeable, and they're actually not. So anyway, that's way too, long of an answer. But so it's a collection officially of 11 horror stories by me, and I do a lot of monsters. So there was a lot of stuff for Derek to like draw from, draw figuratively and literally. But he there's stuff that, he's like, oh, I know what I'm going to do for that. Oh, I know what I'm going to do for that. And so it became a really fun project. And as you go through, there are drawings throughout, but there are also we kind of haven't really been talking about it too much. Derek mentioned really quick we do extras, but that really is our bread and butter. Derek, you want to talk about the extras?
Derek, I think the zombies got Derek.
Did we lose him?
We did lose him. He tried to come back on a couple times, so I'm not sure what happened. So is this
we'll power through.
Yeah. We don't need that guy. No. So is this like in Kickstarter mode here with
Oh no, it's out completely. So if you're interested at all in checking this out, you go to roughhousepublishing.com is the best place to buy it, because that is the only place you can buy the hardcover edition and also the ultimate edition we call when you buy both the hardcover and softcover. And that comes with one final extra. But if I could go through the regular extras first before I get to that. So we always try to do stuff that is just an excuse to have more art, basically. Rough House, Derek's vision. Derek's an incredible artist. I mean, he did the cover of Black Honey, and it's just one of the best things he's ever done. I mean, I just cannot get over this cover. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's this like creepy purple lady who's just covered in bees and honeycombs everywhere and dripping black honey, and it's just really gross. And I just love it to death. So anytime there's an excuse to have more art, it's a good thing. So we always make sure that there's stuff like there's stickers. I can show you at least, Andy.
Yeah. Okay.
There's stickers, and there's like some fun there's like here we have a business card that's like a meta business card. This is actually in one of the stories.
Oh, that's cool.
Just kind of fun. And we have a bookmark that I did the artwork for. And this was actually one of the stories takes place in an arcade in the 80s. And so I made up my own arcade game for the story, and I actually did the artwork for the marquee.
Nice.
Which is the artwork that goes on top.
Right across the top.
Yeah.
Usually
so I had done that. Yeah, right. So I had done that, and we turned it into a bookmark. And there's some all sorts of different stickers. And then we have this is pretty cool. So we did a series of 6 double-sized trading cards.
Oh, those are cool.
They're 5x7. So these are actually, I'm showing you, these are the vampires actually from my other books too.
Nice.
And on the back, it's done like almost like a 50s style, like Mars Attacks sort of kind of a card. And so
do they smell like bad bubblegum?
They don't smell like bad bubblegum. It was the one thing we couldn't get in there, but we talked about it. But no, it's pretty fun. They're all different monsters from the stories in the book. So there's 11 stories, but there's only 6 cards.
Nice.
And we have there's excerpt from the story on the back, and it says like the name of the monster, and they're numbered, and it's just like a fun thing that we are trying to like look back. We love looking to the past. Obviously I like the retro stuff. Being on the podcast, I'm on Retro Redoctopus, and Derek loves the 70s so much, and we're always looking to harken back to those days as well, looking for inspiration, certainly. And so that was like kind of we actually thought it would be really cool if we could like shrink wrap them in foil. Ended up like, it's like, I don't know. I don't even know who does that, would do that. But at the end of the day, that would just be a one-time experience, right? You're just like, ripping it open, but it still would be kind of cool. But, we're always trying to like spitball ideas like that, like what could we do, this and that. So the final extra, which currently, if you go to roughhousepublishing.com and if you buy the ultimate edition of the book, which believe it or not, there's like almost none. I think there's less than 10 left.
There's 2.
There's 2 left. So guys, if you're interested,
at the time of recording,
at the time of recording, there's only 2 left. The final extra is you get a 2.5 ounce bottle of hot sauce that we had made special by this company, Silk City Hot Sauce, and they're out of Brattleboro, Vermont. They made us a hot sauce, and it's called Black Honey, and it's
nice,
amazingly good.
Yeah.
It's really, it's like it's made with the real local honey.
Yeah,
and which I made sure, I'm like, you got it. I want to be able to say it's made,
honey,
made with real. So now I'm saying it to you.
Yeah,
it's made, guys. It's made with real local honey,
which is good for your allergies.
That's right.
Yeah,
and it's also it's pretty hot. It's kind of like it's like a hand grenade hot sauce. You first taste it and you're like, oh, it's just honey. That's all it is. It's honey. And then like you wait 10 seconds and you're like, oh God.
I think Derek's back.
I am, guys. I had to tie 2 Maxwell House cans together with a piece of string, but I think I got it.
Nice.
It worked. Yes. Yeah. You MacGyvered that shit.
Yeah.
That's right. I don't punk rap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know if Zoom is having issues, but it seems to be a recurring thing this week, but could just be coincidence.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. We can both talk a lot, so like if one of us drops out again, like it's fine. It's not really going to be that bad. Your show's not going to like completely suck, is my point.
I mean, I can always go back and just look at my Amazon Prime list again. So
right, yeah,
you know, people love that.
It's gold, I tell you.
So other than your stuff, what have you guys been watching, reading, listening to that I should be checking out?
Good question. Derek, since you're back.
Watching, reading, listening. Shoot. So there's a new podcast that I've been listening to.
We're not new, Derek. We've been around for like 7 years.
Another new podcast. Called Four Color Film. They do it's specifically a podcast about comic book adaptions of movies.
Oh, interesting.
Which kind of came out of the blue. Interestingly enough, most recently, I've been looking around for the old comic book adaptation of 1979's Alien. And originally it was published in Heavy Metal Magazine, and then it was its own graphic novel. And that's all been discontinued, and now they have a new version of that. And I picked it up just around my birthday time, and it just so happens that this podcast was doing a podcast on that in particular book and the artists and everybody who worked on it. So I've been turned on to that. So if we're talking about listening, definitely that. I've been digging into every backwards ass 1970s horror movie that there was back in the day that's free on not Amazon Prime, but whatever it is right now, it's free with ads. But the one thing I noticed about all of those what was it?
Was it Tubi?
Tubi, yes, it was. Yes. And what I've noticed about all of those horror movies that I enjoyed when I was a kid is they never once showed the fucking monster. Not once. I went through the entire movie. No wonder they were made such on the cheap that you never even saw the creature at all. Interesting.
Yeah. But I think there's something great about that is your mind fills in what's scary for you.
There can be, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say that sometimes if done well, less is more. And sometimes glimpses are enough, like The Void. The Void is a great example of a modern horror movie. I love that movie. You see some shit for sure, but it's all fleeting. It's all like really quick. And you never really, get a for sure answer like 100% what the heck was going on, really. Like you do, but yeah, it leaves you wanting a lot. And I think that movie was done incredibly well. I think that is a great example of something that less is more with that one, and it really just satisfied me, honestly.
I was watching I want to say it's called Backroom or The Backroom. It's like a YouTube short that some 17-year-old kid made, and it's very weird and doesn't explain a ton, and the creatures are very kind of like in passing around the corner as you run away.
Yeah.
From what I hear, he's getting a real deal to make a movie about it. So hopefully that stays true. It was pretty good.
Did you ever see that movie Clown? That was it was the story behind it was not part of those fake trailers for the Grindhouse, the Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse. Yeah. It wasn't actually one of those, but this guy made one in the spirit of that after.
Yeah.
And it was for a movie called Clown, and it was done to be in the style of Eli Roth. And it was so on the nose that Eli Roth was getting like people were texting him going, "Oh, I saw this.
I saw your new movie trailer.
I saw the new trailer for this clown movie." And he's like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, you're making this clown movie, right? Like, this is obviously you." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man." And then so he found it, he watched it, he was so impressed, he contacted the people and he produced it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it actually is pretty goddamn good. The movie is just called Clown.
I mean, that's one of the great things about the bar for entry now is not everybody can kind of squeak in that way, but you can if you have a good idea, a little bit of skill. And
exactly, you never know what's going to happen. You just never know. So all the creatives out there who, if you like doing what you're doing, whatever it is, if it's podcasting, if it's making music, if it's writing, if it's drawing, if it's painting, whatever it is, poetry, don't do it for the reason of getting fame and fortune. Don't do it for the reason of getting the accolades and anything like that. You're doing it for the wrong reason. You're not going to be fulfilled. If you're going to do it and you love doing it, do it to do it. And hopefully something happens along the way. But if it doesn't, you're still doing it to do it. So your art is now in the world. Your thing that all the things you made are out in the world, and people can enjoy them. And I think that that's just my personal outlook. And I wish more people would just sort of enjoy the ride, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think if you do and you're genuine about it and you really work at it, I think the accolades and everything else will come.
Yeah. And I do want to shout out a couple of things. I got some stuff some friends of ours have been working on, and I would love to shout them out. Sure. One is a podcast. You should definitely go subscribe to the third episode. It's brand new. Third episode comes out tomorrow. Wednesday. It comes out Wednesday, every Wednesday. And it's called Beneath the Red Umbrella. And it is created, produced, put together, written by James Lamond. He's a local filmmaker and a really good guy. And he's got a bunch of local actors and friends and different creative people. They have 15-minute. Actually, the first one's 21 minutes. The second one was 12. No, those are the days. 16 minutes and 17 minutes long, the episode so far. But they're like audio plays. They're like old radio plays. So they have sound effects. They have, different people playing different characters. And it has like this Twilight Zone sort of, introducer. And, James does that. It's really, really great. So if you're into short form, dramatized horror, I really recommend Beneath the Red Umbrella. Really, really cool. I enjoyed both episodes a lot, and I was actually hotly anticipating this project, and I am just super proud of those guys, and really, really cool project. I think deserves a look. And also my buddies over at the New England Horror Writers, who I know did put out their most recent anthology, not collection, but anthology, because there are multiple authors, and that is Wicked Sick. They have this line of Wicked books. They're all different. Wicked. There's Wicked Seasons, Wicked Tales, Wicked Witches, Wicked Monsters. Wicked Creatures was one. Wicked Weird is the one I'm in. And the new one's Wicked Sick. It's got a plague doctor on the front. It's their best cover by far. I wish I was in this one. I didn't have anything for it at the time, and I didn't know there was going to be a freaking plague doctor on the front. I would have come up with something, but I did not. But check it out. It's really really good stuff. I love those guys, and they have been putting out solid anthologies. I think they missed 1 year, and I don't even think it was 2020. I know they took 1 year off, but they've put out, I think, other than that, I think 7 or so anthologies in a row, one a year.
Yeah.
So they've been at this for a while, and they do great stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think that's how we met. 'Cause I think you were at their table at a con or something. I think that's.
Yeah. I think you're that must be it. You know, I don't remember how we met. It must have been that. It must have been at Rock and Shock. It was before I met Dirk.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. So lots of good stuff, lots of local good stuff locally being created in our Bay State here, New England area.
And there's good something stuff about supporting the local guys where, you know, I always say I'd rather, you know, spend $50 with a guy where I know he's buying diapers for his baby opposed to $20 at some faceless corporation that I don't know where it's going.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm buying diapers for our critics.
I meant also like new ones, not full,
not used
ones.
Not used. Also, the best horror book I read this year so far, besides Black Honey, is The Dismembered by Jonathan Janz. It is amazing.
Interesting.
It's short. It's written in perfect Gothic. Like he wrote it exactly in this like homage to Gothic literature of the like mid 1800s. Like it's insane. It's insane. It's so good. The Dismembered.
Let me ask you a question I've been asking a lot of horror creators lately. Is you know, things are always going trends. You know, I feel like the mid-late 80s into the early 90s were vampires, and then zombies came on huge. And I feel like zombies are kind of like dying down a little bit. What's the next monster trend?
Well, you missed the whole vampire and werewolf thing, which
I didn't miss it. I was kind of like ignoring it a little bit.
Oh God.
Because I feel like werewolves should have had their own time.
Those are they just aren't my versions of those characters, but that's okay. They're still legitimate. If you love them, that's fine. All the power to you. So the question is, what's next, or
what's the next trend?
I don't know. What do you think, Derek?
Well, that's probably a better question for somebody who follows trends.
Yeah, we're old.
I was gonna say Derek's trends are like 1967 through 78.
Yeah.
Hey, ouch.
Well, you can get me into the early 80s, but
okay, all right.
Early.
That wasn't a shot at him. That's just every time I talk to him, it's like he always.
There's a lot of gray in that beard, Andy.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I know. I wasn't saying he is from that. It seems like he's a fan of that era. Sorry if that was making you sound old.
I don't think you're older than I am. I love the 30s and 40s myself, so it doesn't make any sense.
It seems to me, anyways, that just kind of looking at it from a very loose perspective, that maybe possession style movies, like not possession like The Exorcist, but more like. Right now, we're having like a 90s renaissance, if you noticed. So, and it's just the very, very tip of that iceberg again. So we're getting a lot of. So I saw a movie the other day, The Boogeyman, the new one that just came out, and you could have fun with it and say I liked it better when it was Come Play, and I liked Come Play better when it was Smile, and I liked Smile better back when it was. It Follows, and I like that better when it was The Grudge. So you can kind of follow all this stuff back, but the whole cursed something, and because you've entered it, you have a certain amount of time to live. And
like The Ring.
That whole kind of adage, and that was big. That was actually bigger in the early 2000s than the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean,
totally.
It's a mummy thing, Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, really.
Sure. Yeah. True. Yeah.
And it's just, it's an easy way to start your narrative for a horror movie. You don't have to give it a lot of thought. I'm not saying it's necessarily the best thing that I've seen come down the pike, but it's it's a fun, I call it a fun TK. You know, you basically know how all these movies are going to end before they begin.
Yeah.
Some are better than others. I actually like Smile a lot. Speaking of Smile, when it came out,
I actually missed that one. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it
Smile was all right. Again, it's the same. You know, you've seen the movie itself before.
Yeah.
It's just a question of, you know, you've heard Stairway to Heaven. No one's gonna do it better than Led Zeppelin. But every once in a while, a good Led Zeppelin tribute band will friggin' knock it out of the park. But then there's, you know, my band that'll fucking destroy it and make you hate music. So, you know, it all depends on how they're doing this kind of stuff. But if you're gonna ask me, I'd say that's probably what we're in the middle of right now. Maybe slashes to a lesser degree. Again, we're celebrating the Scream era again. And I Know What You Did Last Summer and you know, some of these others.
I mean, Halloween came back.
Yeah, but almost like the whodunit stuff, you know, like someone among us is the killer. Who is it?
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
But
a lot of legacy sequels are happening, like across just overall everything. You know, I mean, obviously, yes, Halloween, but I mean, I think Cobra Kai really, you know, really did it the best and got everybody. I
like
to
the
really,
first two
like,
seasons, and I just got like,
well, okay, fair enough, but it's still going, you know.
Oh, I know, yeah. It's just after the giant kung fu fight in a high school, I was like, no, you lost me.
It was still good after that, man.
Yeah,
you missed some good stuff.
Yeah,
I actually haven't seen.
You want to talk about legacy stuff like Ghostbusters Afterlife was
right. I mean, that was
fantastic.
I mean, I just loved it. I loved it. Loved it. I'm so glad they're doing more. I loved that movie. I really did. And yeah, I mean, Bill and Ted 3. Bill and Ted finally faced the music, for good or bad. Like they you know, that happened. And I mean, there's been a number of really fun things that are looking back with the original cast. And I really, you know, Scream being another one, of course, as mentioned. I think that is really fun, and I think that can't last. But I almost see that as a trend too. You know, I like, you know, I didn't see the new Evil Dead, but you know, I almost more appreciate that was, you know, it's its own thing. Although we really got the legacy sequel with Ash versus Evil Dead. That really is the legacy sequel to all old Evil Dead movies anyway. So we already got it.
Before we close out, let me ask this question, because I love this question, and I love my answer to this question. But
it's so good.
It's so good.
It's just so good,
because so many things are remade and relaunched and sequels. What is one property that you think there should be a sequel to, or remake, launch, whatever, that hasn't happened? And I'll tell you, my answer was Buckaroo Banzai.
Okay. You know, I just watched Buckaroo Banzai.
Such a good movie.
3 weeks ago, and a bunch of us in the house had never seen it. I'd seen it once.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that. But you know, I know, you know what my favorite part of Buckaroo Banzai is? That nobody who made the movie has any idea what the hell it's about. Like all this, like this stuff with Peter Weller and like all these interviews, like Jeff Goldblum, they're all like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, why were we all walking at the end like that? It's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what it was about. Oh my god, it's the funniest
star-studded cast, man. Like,
all right, so I'm gonna I've answered this question before. My answer is I think we're getting this. I think this is, I had heard that this is happening. I don't know if it still is or whatever, but my answer is actually The Last Starfighter.
Ooh, really? I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you go back and watch The Last Starfighter, and then you watch just the first Star Wars, A New Hope, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, imagine a universe, you know, with all the multiverse, you know, the Spider-Verse, you know, there's another version of Earth. And, you know, we have a Korean Spider-Man, and in it, the Last Starfighter was the one who went on to get like the biggest fandom of all time and all these sequels and TV shows, and it's the biggest thing in the entire world. And this little movie called Star Wars never even was a blip.
Yeah.
It was just this weird little thing. It ends with the awards ceremony and we're kind of done because, you know, they didn't beat Darth Vader in that movie. There's more to do, but it did sort of feel like an end. Well, Last Starfighter, holy crap. They don't beat the bad guys. It's like basically a successful test run is what's like accomplished by the end of that movie. The bad guys are all out there. They set the whole thing up. It's this evil empire. It's this, you know, these guys with big foreheads. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called, but you know, I want more Last Starfighter. Yeah.
Love it. What about you, Derek?
Let's see. I was thinking about this while you guys were talking. There's a lot actually that are not coming to mind right now, but John Carpenter's Dark Star, I think, would be an excellent movie to be remade. I think. So that was Andy. I'm not sure.
I've not seen that one.
I've never seen it.
Yeah. So it started out as John Carpenter's student film when he was at I forget what college he was at in California when he was studying. And he was given money after the fact, him and Dan O'Bannon, to finish the movie and make it a feature-length film. And that turned out to be his first film ever. And literally, it's a space movie where you can literally see the duct tape on screen. It's like there's an alien in it that's literally a beach ball with hands sticking out of it. What I like about the movie isn't necessarily what they were able to put on screen, but the movie has an incredible amount of heart, and it has a really cool, interesting premise where you got a bunch of guys. So obviously, you know, somebody was a 2001 fan because it's a spaceship called the Dark Star. There's a mission where a bunch of guys go on the Dark Star, and they're supposed to obliterate other planets that could be a threat to our solar system. But then something goes wrong. The AI keeps them out in space and never lets them go home. So it's been like 25 years, and these guys are just stuck together on this ship, not able to get off. And the madness has set in, and the malaise have set in, and all that kind of stuff. And the story begins there. And I just thought it was just really interesting. And of course, there's alien life that they encounter, again, that beach ball creature. And, you know, one guy is reminiscing about home. He goes to the top of the Dark Star all the time, and he puts like a lawn chair out and pretends that he's getting, you know, sun when he's actually not. But it's just cool. And I think that if they did the movie right, it would be something that would be very interesting to see with money. I don't think they ever will. Most people don't even remember the movie at all.
Yeah, I had to like Google it. I do remember the cover art, but I'm
yeah,
pretty sure I've never seen it.
They kind of resold it as a unintentional comedy, sort of, just because the execution of the movie is so shoddy, you know, that you laugh even though you're not supposed to be. Right. So I think they kind of leaned into that and tried to repackage the movie as more of a interstellar comedy kind of thing. But I think that there's a lot of dark themes in there that would be interesting to kind of mess around with.
Nice. Well, thanks, guys. Why don't you give your final website plug and whatnot for our listeners for Rough House?
Sure. Well, you can get us always at roughhousepublishing.com. We're on Twitter at RHP Comics. You can get us on Instagram. Derek Rook, you can get on Instagram too. Facebook, pretty easy to find. And we have a bunch of amazing stuff. I know that while I was out in La La Land, Steve was plugging the hell out of Black Honey.
Yep.
And like Steve said, we are down to just a few copies of the Ultimate Edition that includes the hot sauce, but we do have premium and standard editions of the book still readily available. And we're going to be doing some shows coming up soon. We have Silver Scream Convention, like we mentioned, that's coming up in September. We are planning on doing TerraCon and, of course, the Monster Expo in October. And we have a bunch of really great stuff coming out for the end of this year, next year. So stay tuned.
Outstanding. Well, thank you guys so much for taking part. Looks like Steve's audio dropped. So let's just say thank you, Steve. Derek, as always, thank you. Anytime you guys got stuff to announce that you're launching or Kickstart or whatever, you're always welcome back. And for our listeners, we'll check you guys again next week.
Take care, man.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.